All right, welcome back. Of course, it's still TVC Breakfast. Now, let's take a look at what is happening with regular Nigerians.
Yes.
You know, there are certain things that affect regular Nigerians. You know, by that
I'm
I
glad you
mean
used the
middle
word
class.
regular, not
Yes,
ordinary.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, I
don't like that
deliberately, you know,
Yeah.
get away from using that
Ordinary.
word in really. But there is something that affects, you know, middle-class Nigerians, if you like. And once that happens,
Yes.
you see people, you know, talk about it with so much, you know, passion.
Well, you may be wondering
you
what
know,
we're
really.
talking about.
Yes.
It has to do with the ATMs. Commercial bank customers have decried excess charges by banks through automated teller machines as the ATM withdrawals. Some customers say they dread making withdrawals using other banks' ATMs because of the continued charge of 65 naira for every transaction.
Now, according to the customers, most banks have programmed their ATMs to dispense not more than 10,000 naira per transaction, thus compelling customers who want more cash to make multiple withdrawals and part with 65 naira per transaction.
Now, the aggrieved bank customers called on the Central Bank of Nigeria to look into the matter. The CBN has responded to the cries of the disheartened customers. Well, the Apex Bank has ordered that all monies illegally deducted from customers' accounts be refunded with interest, as mandated by the Monetary Policy Circular of the CBN. All right, we have in the studio the President, Consumer Advocacy Forum of Nigeria, Salak-Ajulo. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, Nigerians have been shouting themselves hoarse over the years about this ATM illegal charges and other hidden charges by the banks, but nobody seems to be doing anything. Okay, the CBN says the banks should refund the illegal withdrawals with interest. Any of these banks?
We should ask the
responding
CBN,
to the CBN.
we should ask the CBN
directive?
what the CBN is doing to ensure that his directive is followed. Because when you say, you just give a blanket directive that says, return all illegal withdrawal or deductions back to customers, who determines what is illegal? Has the CBN sent its officers to go to those banks to go and look into their books to determine what they've deducted that is illegal? Or is it the customer who doesn't even know what he's supposed to be charged for anything
in the first place
that will know that this deduction is illegal? So I think CBN is just playing to the gallery on this issue. We have raised it with them severally. In the first instance, it was this same CBN that gave the commercial banks the permission to charge on every third withdrawal on another bank's ATM per month.
Third withdrawal per
That's
month.
what the law says.
That's what the law says.
But from the experiences that consumers have told us severally, from the first time you put your card in a different bank's ATM, somehow 65 naira comes out of your account for a few banks. And they go complain, nothing happens. And so it's CBN who needs to take the step to correct this. I find that CBN is always trying to help the banks make income, because there's so many of these charges that CBN approved that when they brought out the draft charges to us, we actually contributed to it. We told them what the consumers would not like and what the consumers don't want, but they still went ahead and approved them. Don't forget that this ATM charge had already been abolished sometime in the history of the Nigerian experience in banking and ATM. And it was just this new management in CBN that returned it. And so if, when it was abolished, Nigerians were patronizing more ATMs at that time, banking was going on, and there was more confidence. People could take their money to the bank because they know that when I want to get it out, I'm not going to lose something. But now, CBN in his wisdom approved this 65 naira for transactions of withdrawing an ATM. In fact, just 2 days ago, a consumer was complaining to me that she stopped going into the banking hall because it was a bit cumbersome. So she was thinking that, have I not been saving the banks some money in terms of overheads by not going to banking halls and using the ATM? So the ATM is supposed to be some means by which you are making life a little easier for the system. And yet the system...
But if you look at the cost of using the ATM, it
Yet
becomes
the system penalizes you for it.
Yes.
So it really doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right. Now, as President Customer Advocacy Forum of Nigeria, we remember very clearly the instance of the adopted girls, Chibok, the other ones, Dapchi, the BBOG, Bring Back Our Girls campaigners have always been on the heels of government, trying to put pressure on the government, even though that they haven't seen much. But you could see, action. The government, trying to work to ensure the release of these girls. Shouldn't your forum be doing that as well to ensure, because CBN, as you said, is playing to the gallery, giving the order, yet they are not following it. Shouldn't it be your position to ensure that yes, you put CBN under pressure?
You want to know the amount of pressure we have put CBN? My organization declared a no banking day in March in 2016, just to put pressure on the system. We declared closed 1 million bank accounts based on these charges. We've done all of these things, but then the consumers you are even advocating for, when it's time for you to call them to action, they will tell you, I have to go to the bank, I have to, because the only way you can make them feel that this is not convenient for you is if you withdraw your custom. If we all decide to take one day and withdraw our custom from the banking system in one day, the amount of money they will lose will send the signal to them that these people are serious. Yeah. That's the only language they understand. But as long as we keep taking our custom there, and we're talking and shouting, they will keep doing what they're doing, because they know that the CBN is not fully equipped and structured to actually monitor and mandate that its regulations are followed. That's very clear.
Well, shouldn't there be some kinds of systems, maybe technology-wise or something, that will actually, that can record every transaction, especially when it comes to the ATMs?
It's recorded.
And come to think of it, the ATMs are meant for convenience for the customer.
Every transaction is recorded. We don't have a problem with service providers making money for their services.
Yes.
That's acceptable. But when you think of the sheer number of people who use an ATM every day, and for every one of such transactions, or every third of such transactions, you make you make 65 naira. The alarming sum of what they collect on every ATM every day. And then what is even very oppressive and exploitative is the fact that one bank started it, and suddenly all the other banks have followed it. By reducing the amount of money you can take out of an ATM machine to 10,000 naira, so that anytime you need to draw in one day, at one transaction, you can actually cover the 3 free withdrawals in a month. But you still have to use these ATMs, because no bank has enough ATMs around the whole country for its customers. So you still have to use third-party ATMs.
Coupled with the fact that you even have to go to a bank premises. In other parts of the world, ATMs are everywhere. All around you, step out of your door, there's an ATM around the corner. But even that's been taken out. So where is the convenience of the ATM?
It's because of the fraud that putting ATMs in places that are not so secure has fraud. That's why CBN took the decision to remove them and put them in banks. But even with put them in banks, in most places, especially in these urban centers, you have an ATM within 5 minutes walk of wherever you are. The challenge we have is that, we've raised this issue with CBN. They haven't done anything about it. And they know that the banks are doing these things. It started with just one bank. And then before we know it, everybody has started to do it. Why would you reduce how much each machine can dispense up to 30,000 or 40,000 for your own customer? But as soon as a different customer puts in a card, the system is programmed to dispense less so that you can make more money. I think that is the expectation in the issue.
All right, the Senate earlier in the year concluded that they were going to also look into this matter of charges by banks and all of that. There is a sense in which that is comforting, isn't it?
No. I've learned in this country not to take everybody just simply because they say something. I would be excited when I start to see the action. I know for a fact that CBN is putting in a whole lot of restructuring around this consumer protection policy, which is very encouraging. But after making the laws, what are the structures to enforce the laws? Those are the places where they drop the ball. we need to be able to enforce laws. Like I always say, in an environment like ours, where there's so much challenges and the consumers are not that enlightened about their rights, consumer protection should be more preemptive than reactive.
Yeah.
So government is supposed to go into that system and make sure that the system is as safe as possible. So you minimize the number of people who will have infractions that they need to complain to you. But right here, the government waits for that infraction to happen and then tell you to complain.
So in other words, we're not being proactive.
No, we're not.
We're always reactionary.
Yes, very, very reactive.
And government is even looking at, even the CBN is looking at bringing in more unbanked people into the banking system. Now, when they hear about all of this, how do you encourage them? Now, talking about dropping the ball, the CBN says to customers, look, you approach your banks and complain to them. Should there be some kind of class action on the part of customers? Because when I hear the CBN say, look, and then again, don't withdraw when it's not necessary, except it's absolutely necessary. Just use the POS and all of that. It's like they don't even want to take responsibility.
Well, the thing with it is we've had a lot of class actions going on in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we're yet to win any. Because even our judiciary is not that enlightened about these processes. So we still have a whole lot of, I mean, Lagos State has given us something to celebrate last week by the judiciary in Lagos State setting up 15 small claims courts where you can go adjudicate on cases of anything that has to do with 5 million naira or less. And that each of those cases up to appeal must be concluded within 3 months. One of the things that make people stay away from going to court to enforce their rights is the length of time and the cost. But with such
without any guarantee that you'll get justice at the end of the day.
But with such an initiative, it should help to make pushing for your rights a little easier, at least in the Lagos environment.
All right, President, Customer Advocacy Forum of Nigeria, Shola Salak-Ajulo, thank you very much indeed for coming to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.